Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Alex. I'm a coach and this channel is all about self-development and helping you to live a happier and more fulfilling life. And in this new series, I'm going to be reviewing some of my favorite content, films, videos, TV shows and music that I've really taken a lot of personal learnings from, and I want to share those learnings with you because I'm going to put a little coaching flip and lens on those learnings. So in this video, I'm going to be reviewing Shakka's brand new album, Road Trip to Venus. And the reason I want to do this is because I recently had Shakka on my podcast. I interviewed him and we spoke a bit about the album. But it was interesting because he asked me at one point, what did I get from the album? Because his perspective was like, well, I know what I put into the album and I know the meanings that was meant to be in the album and everything because I wrote it. But I'd love to hear from your perspective, from a fan, like what's your perspective of the album and the learnings in it? And I thought that was a really interesting question because it's like he wanted to hear someone else's perspective on the model body of work that he's put a lot of time and energy into. And it's actually a really good point when it comes to that album because, you know, the title of the album itself, Road Trip to Venus, indicates one thing, right? It indicates the whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and it's a man traveling across to the realm of Venus to experience it. And that title really stuck with me throughout the album, right? Because there's a lot of songs in the album that are about, you know, heartbreak, breakup, relationships, etc., etc. But and the sort of the Mars versus Venus thing kind of indicates that, right? But the really big learning that I took from the album was this idea of Mars being the masculine and Venus being the feminine. And I saw the album of it being Shakka's journey with exploring the more feminine sides of him, i.e. Venus, and exploring them and what they mean to him and how that affects and shows up in his relationships. And this becomes really interesting because it's like, well, he's coming from a masculine place, right? He's a guy. He's coming from this Mars energy, this masculine energy. And the album's very open, right? It's very vulnerable. Like I said, there's a lot of relationship talk, love, heartbreak in it. And in order to kind of tap into that side of himself, you have to be in the feminine energy. But not just that, like there's a lot of songs in there where it's about Shakka's journey exploring, you know, the feminine sides of himself, the feminine energy within us, right? Because although people say, oh, you know, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, we're both made up of the same stuff, right? We both come from the same place. There's no real difference in terms of the things that we feel, etc., that between male and female, right? Men and women. But we've been led to believe there's this whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus thing. But the album really explores like what are some of the parts of Venus that are inside me as a man and the feminine energy that I have. And the same will go the other way, right, for women. But this becomes really interesting in the album because Shakka really deeply explores what it means to be vulnerable as a guy. You know, what does it mean to be vulnerable? What does it mean when you're showing up from a vulnerable place and you're coming from this energy that as a guy we're not really used to? And the narrative and the journey behind that in the album really leads to a road of kind of acceptance and openness. Because if you're willing to be vulnerable as a guy, as we know, it's not really like the done thing, right? Because it's not something we're shown, it's not something we've grown up leading to believe is okay in ways, right? But by being open to the vulnerable sides of yourself, the more compassionate, loving, that more feminine energy within you, all you're doing is learning to accept those parts. So instead of like fighting off this feminine energy, like, no, I can't be feeling like that because that's not meant for a guy, that seems like a very like exhausting place to be coming from. If you're constantly kind of fighting off this energy of the feminine, you're fighting off this energy of I don't want to feel sad, or what, you know, don't want to feel emotions like that, or whatever it is, right? Whatever guys kind of tend to feel like. And in my experience, that's the stuff that I used to push away. But by becoming more accepting of those emotions and understanding that it's deeply a part of you, you can understand that actually we already are built to explore all of those emotions and feel all of those emotions ourselves. There's nothing innately wrong with any emotion over another. It's just something that we as human beings have this huge capability of experiencing. We have this very broad spectrum of emotions, from extreme happiness to like extreme sadness and anger and everything in between. And we have the capabilities to feel any single one of those in any moment. And that's part of the beautiful experience of a human experience on this earth, right? And when we're trying to push away some of those emotions, like most guys would, coming from that masculine place, will be pushing away certain emotions. It's about understanding that actually we are complete as it is. We don't need to push anything away to make ourselves whole. We should be accepting any emotion that we feel and that comes our way, because that is actually a part of our makeup and there's nothing wrong with that. And when you go down that path of seeing that there's nothing wrong with feeling any type of way, there's nothing wrong with having a certain thought, the only thing that makes the difference in any of those situations is the meaning that you place on it. If you place a meaning, so coming from the Shakka album, he's coming from the place of, I'm a masculine guy, I can't be feeling these feminine things. He's putting a meaning on certain emotions and certain feelings that he's having, because he's looking at it through that lens of, I am coming from this place, I can't be feeling these things, right? But those emotions and those feelings that anyone's feeling are entirely neutral until we put that meaning on them. And we only put that meaning on them for our own personal layer of thinking. What that meaning means to us. What does it mean for a guy to feel like he's overly emotional, right? There's a lens of meaning and an idea and a concept that we place on top of that. And then we feed back that story to ourselves and we start to believe it. And that's why we create these kind of differences between the way that we feel when we place judgment on them, because we're telling ourselves, this is something that I don't want to feel. This is something that I do want to feel. So when I feel these things that I don't want to feel, I'm going to place judgment on myself for why I'm feeling them. And we then begin to overanalyze the feeling and what it means to us. And we start to buy into that story that we've told ourselves. But if you drop the story, if you drop the meaning that you have on any of these emotions, any of these feelings, all that you're left with is the neutrality of, well, this is the feeling that I'm having right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's a really beautiful thing to explore in your life. And it's a really beautiful thing that I was really happy to hear was explored in Shakka's album. At least this is the stuff that I took from it, right? This is the learnings that I took from it, that it's okay. Firstly, it's okay to explore these different sides of yourself, these different feelings, these different emotions. And secondly, like, it's okay to have them in the first place. There's nothing innately wrong with any of them, right? Your feelings are only ever a reflection of what you're thinking in that moment. And that's it. So it's okay to have any of those feelings. We don't need to add this layer of meaning or this layer of judgment on top of them. So if you enjoyed this episode and you feel like you've really learned or took something from it, or there's something in here that you disagree with, I'd love to invite you to message me on Instagram at I'm Alex Manzi, or if you're watching the video, drop a comment below and let me know what you took from this episode, because I think it's really important that we have these conversations, and by building these conversations around some of these ideas, it will help us to kind of see them and implement them in our own lives, and then also hopefully bring those conversations into our own lives as well. So like I said, I'd like to invite you to share your learnings with me from this episode. Hit me up on Instagram at I am Alex Manzi. DM me in the comments if you're watching the video, and I want to thank you for watching, and I will see you for the next episode.